Hey everyone, Julie B here, just getting a few technical things worked out as we go live. That's how it is. Making sure we can go live over on Instagram. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about some author behind the scenes confessions, just to give you a quick update. But before I get too far into that, I do want to mention that I am having on October 3rd a free in-person event in Monroe, North Carolina. So if you are in Indian Trail, Stallings, Charlotte, Matthews, Waxhaw, Marshville, any of those areas in Monroe, even down into Indian Land, Valentine, if you're in those areas, it'll be a great event. So I'd love to see you there. Details are in the descriptions. Now, I want to talk about my experience as an author. And I've been on this journey now. Wow, it's been July, August. It's 3 months basically since my book came out. I've been working on the book I've been working on Burned, my best friend, my constant companion at this point. I've been working on Burned for almost 3 years at this point. October 2021 was when I started writing it. And it's been such a journey. Today I'm going to talk about my Barnes and Noble book signing experiences thus far. I've had 2 of those. I'm going to talk about just the hustle of booking speaking engagements, booking paid speaking engagements specifically, and just about how this is the long game. It is a really long game when you are an author. So, excuse me, let me get into this Barnes and Noble's book signing experience. One really cool thing about being a traditionally published author is the distribution network that you get onto. So my book is on the Penguin Random House distribution network. And I can't tell you how many times I have called a bookstore, and that was one of the first questions they asked me was, how is it distributed? Or a lot of the times they'll ask for the ISBN number, and then they can look it up very quickly and see what network it's on. And a few times when I called Barnes and Noble, I think a lot of them just assumed that I was a self-published author or a hybrid published author. And when you go that route, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not hating on any route to get your book done. I think that whatever route works for you. I've talked a lot about how I don't think traditional publishing is for everyone. I think traditional publishing is for people who really want to be an author and a speaker. I think that's the route that traditional publishing makes a lot of sense because of the credibility that comes with it, because of the distribution channel. Honestly, I think that's one of the biggest reasons. It's all about that. So I can't tell you, almost every time I called Barnes and Noble to set up a speaking event, and yes, I did that myself. I've learned a lot about like what your publisher does versus what you have to do as an author. You still have to do a ton of marketing. But as soon as I told them, or as soon as they figured out that my book was on a traditionally published platform, it was just absolutely, when do you want to do the event? Come in, we'll set you up. It was fantastic. Like there was no pushback once I got to that. For most of them, one of them told me to call back in January because they weren't doing any more book signings in store. So first lesson is just the amazingness of having a traditionally published book on a very good distribution channel. I've also experienced that with local libraries. They want to make sure that people can buy your book if they want to buy their own copy. And that's one of the first things they looked up was, is it a traditionally published book? And honestly, it didn't even have to go through, at least for my local library, I don't even think they put it through a quality control process. I think they just went right to putting it out there because they knew that it had already gone through a pretty stringent quality control. And because they could see very easily that you could get it anywhere and it wasn't self-published, it wasn't a consignment situation where the author is in charge of making sure that they distribute the book. So that's one thing I've learned about this. But anyways, the Barnes and Noble book signing, sorry, I kind of got off track about that. it has been a humbling experience and has been an amazing experience. And I'll tell you, my first one, I was there for 4 hours and I sold 6 books. And that sounds awful. And I felt awful about it when I went up to the manager at the end and I was like, I sold 6 books. He was ecstatic because I learned that they really only expect an author like me, a first time author, doesn't really have, it's not like I had a line out the door of people who are buying my book. I had to work to sell all 6 of those books. And he said that they usually expect people to sell one book every 2 hours. One book for 2 hours. I was there for 4 hours. So they were only expecting me to sell 2 books that entire time. And I actually sold 6. So it's 3 times what they expected, which is amazing. So that was my first event. And I learned the value of learning how to sell your book to strangers. So up to that point, my network has been buying, my friends have been buying, somebody who's told somebody has been buying. And I need that. Like, I need you guys to keep talking about it. I'm never going to stop talking about this book. And I need y'all to continue to tell your people, hey, you need to read Julie's book. Hey, you need to read this book. That is probably the best way to spread word of mouth. But there is value in learning how to sell your book to strangers, one-to-one conversations, selling your book to strangers. I have a new appreciation for people who go to like arts and crafts festivals and set up a booth and sell to people who are browsing, because at Barnes and Noble, these people are walking in on a Saturday. They might be looking for a specific book. And, there's like, I don't know, tens of thousands. I don't even know, like at least tens of thousands of books in every Barnes and Noble store. So the fact that I was able to attract people to me in the store, and I had no signage. It looked horrible. My display looked horrible. So like it was a cluster. But being able to attract people to me to buy my book and talk with them and get to know them, like those are skills that are going to serve me so well as I go on. So selling to strangers was a big one. And then, so I learned that kind of after my first one. And then I had one last week and it was kind of the same thing. Although I learned a few more tricks to the trade of selling a book in a bookstore. And this time I was there for 4 hours and I sold 10 books. So, first time 6, second time 10. I'm getting the hang of going into a Barnes and Noble on a Saturday and hustling basically to sell my book. Some people do come up to me. And the other interesting thing I've learned is that the people who typically talk with you the longest never buy a book. At both experiences, I had someone probably talk with me for 15 to 20 minutes and like walked out of the store without buying my book, which I thought was very interesting. But what I learned at the second bookstore experience, the second Barnes and Noble experience, is that one, my book is for everybody. Burned is for every single person who is working and even people who aren't working. I had 3 kids buy my book, 3 children under 12 years old. They were between 8 and 12. 3 of them wanted my book because they were excited to meet a local author, and 2 of them were either writing a book or had written a book, and they were just excited to meet a local author. Most of the people who bought my book are working professionals. I had a teacher buy my book, a tradesperson buy my book. I had one person buy my book for someone else. I only had one business owner buy my book at Barnes and Noble last weekend. And I can't even begin to tell you, I'm broadening what I'm realizing and what I'm realizing this book can do for people and who it's for. It's for anyone who's working, who has work stress, quite frankly, can read this book and get a lot out of it. That is the reality of the book. I mean, I sold it to all age groups. My oldest customer, 92. Youngest was 8. So 8 to 92, all kinds of different walks of life. I mean, just people who are ready to retire. I definitely had a Gen Z buy it. Like, it was just one of those things where everybody, like those 10 people represented a wide population. And I'm still working on what that means for me, but I just thought it was cool. And I realized that my book is really for everyone. And I've also learned this whole author title, and especially, well, I haven't tested this yet. I hope to go to Barnes and Noble in my home state of West Virginia and do a book signing and see how that goes. But the meeting a real live, like a real life author is a thing. People are really impressed by that. And I'm certainly sure that part of that is that I'm in Barnes and Noble. So I know there's an assumption there that like Barnes and Noble has screened me, which they have because my publisher screened me. And, there's this whole like distribution and credentialing process that happens behind the scenes when you are an author. And I think that it's just been an experience that I haven't seen self-published authors go through. And so I'm not sure if they get the same treatment. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll self-publish a book and then I'll know the answer to that question. But I do know that I am getting asked. The first question has something to do with distribution, and I only get the distribution that I have because I have a publisher. So anyways, that whole Barnes and Noble experience, and it sounds crazy because I've spent 8 hours selling 16 books, but I think the important thing that I've taken away from that is that I have sold 16 books to people who weren't even buying my book. They weren't looking for my book when they walked in the store that day. They weren't even thinking about, they were there to either just browse, or they were looking for something very specific, or they were there to entertain their kids. And selling books to strangers in that format it gives me the confidence to continue, and it makes me realize like, holy crap, my book is needed by people. Like, people need to get the book and read it. So I'm going to leave that there. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next thing I want to talk about, which is booking speaking engagements. And oh my god, and I have some friends that are in this world of booking speaking engagements. Most of them are doing it kind of as a side hustle almost, where they have a business that they're running, but they also go out and do speaking engagements. And I am moving into a part of life where I want to be a speaker. I think that I used to say that wasn't what I wanted to do, but the more and more I do it, the more I'm like, this is where I feel like most comfortable. This is where I belong. And so I'm doing a few things. I have a couple of paid speaking engagements coming up for the rest of the year. By the way, again, if you are in the Charlotte area, specifically also Union County, if you're a business owner in that area, or even if you're a working professional in that area, there is a free event October 3rd. The link is in the description of all of these videos. Free event October 3rd. It's a Thursday evening, 6 p.m. at the Union County Chamber of Commerce is where it's going to be held, which is in Monroe, North Carolina. It's going to be a fantastic event. I'm going to speak. There's going to be some interactive games we play, basically. And you're going to learn a lot about how to prevent burnout and how to leverage it, how to overcome it, so that it doesn't take your business or your career down. Quite frankly, like it did mine. And that's another story for another day. But you also get a copy of my book. So the people who are putting this on, they've purchased books to give away. So sign up. It's free. I'd love to see you there. I love speaking to an audience that is interested in the topic, or even if you just want to come out and support me, just come out and support me and be there. So you can get another free copy, or get another copy for free of my book and give it to a friend who needs to read it. That's how this whole game works, folks, is word of mouth. And I need it. And I need you to continue talking about my book. So anyways, booking speaking engagements, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. I will say that my book has gotten me in the door. Being traditionally published, actually, it's more about associating my book with other popular business books. So I'm really fortunate that my publisher, the umbrella publisher, also put out traction. So in business circles, I can say that, and that adds a layer of credibility to what I'm doing. They've also published some like really well-known names in business. So I do use that. I do name drop when I'm trying to get speaking engagements a little bit. I try not to do it, but I do. Most speaking gigs are booked a year out, probably 6 months out. Like the good paying gigs are booked at least 6 months out. So right now I'm booking engagements for like next spring, summer. You can pick up, I have found value in like letting, especially local, like if you're in the local area, letting conferences know that you're in the area if something happens. Like, listen, speakers get sick, people drop out, stuff happens. Stuff happens where conference organizers need backup plans. And while I haven't booked anything yet like that, um, all of the conference organizers I've reached out to, and with that, like kind of being the message, like, hey, I know that you probably have your speakers all lined up. If somebody drops out, like I can be ready pretty quickly and be there. Just, put me on your alternate list, basically. So that has worked well for me, and they've been really thankful for that. And then they also, that's an easy introduction to getting in the door. If you think about it, like they're going to have another conference in another city probably next year. So that's an easy way to get in the door with some of these speaking program managers and event coordinators and all of that. But I think my big takeaway from all of this is that this career, and I knew this going in, but I definitely am challenging the assumption that you can't make a living as an author. I think I'm going to prove that to be wrong, because I'm pretty much doing that in a lot of ways. I mean, there's other things I'm doing, but I definitely lead with speaker and author right now when I go out to networking events. And I have consulting clients and coaching clients and things like that too. But when I go to events, man, I'm leading with that. I'm hitting that speaker author, like networking events. I'm hitting that really hard because it's what I want to do long term. I mean, I would love to be the author, to do keynotes or to do, session breakouts that pay well, and, people who want me to come along and share my mission of protecting the entrepreneurial spirit, because it's so important that we have entrepreneurs and business owners. And guys, I even think it's important to have the business owners and the entrepreneurs who don't make it, whose businesses have to close for whatever reason. I think all entrepreneurs are important. I think all business owners are needed, because those people often set the stages. When you look at I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about how like we were talking about not Vespas. We were talking about, God, you remember those like hoverboard things that, I don't know, like 5 years ago, adults all over social media were like breaking arms and wrists and ankles and legs because they didn't have the balance to ride it. But my wife and I were talking about, like, why have those gone away? Why don't we see those anymore? And it's because I think we have now electric skateboards and electric bikes and electric scooters. And I think that those mechanisms have replaced that hoverboard. But would those things have been created without the hoverboard? Or not? It's not a hoverboard. I call it a hoverboard. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, would those things, so even though maybe that product had a very short splash, or fidget spinners, like that's another product that you don't hear or see a lot of anymore. But I think that market created markets for other tools and for other, I mean, I used a fidget spinner for a long time because it helped me with my ADHD. So I think that even businesses that don't make it, I follow Sarah Blakeney, the founder of Spanx, on social, and she has launched a new product that is, I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but like I watch her and I'm like, she does so much for entrepreneurship, especially women entrepreneurs. And she's got such a positive personality that you just want her to succeed and you just want her to do well. This product that she has, it's like sneaker high heels is basically how I would describe it. And, I don't know if there's a market for that, but she's a smart woman. So I don't think that she would have started it without knowing a market existed. So we'll see where that goes. But I just think that, like, all success comes from failure. Even if that's your own failures, but even the failures of others build the success of future entrepreneurs. And I hate using the word failures, but I don't know. I just think even business owners who don't make it are really important because at the very least they learn a lot, they get a lot of experience, and when they go back into the workforce, they are probably some of the most resilient employees you will ever hire. And they make for really resilient people in the workforce. They may be a little stubborn about hours and where they work and how they work, but I don't know. I think we just need entrepreneurship, period, for a lot of reasons, not just for the economy, but for like our overall world. Because they're just some of the most innovative and resilient people, and we need people like that in this world. So, anyways, I don't even know where I was going with that, but booking speaking engagements is a hard game. Anybody who's out there doing it and doing it well and doing it as their primary income, killing it. I mean, they're just hustling their butts off to build that database of, build that experience. And I would love for y'all to come to that October 3rd event that I've mentioned a couple of times, because that will be uh, just a great event. You'll get to see me speak. It helps me. I love getting feedback from people, honest feedback too. I really enjoy the people who say like this part of the talk, I wasn't so sure about it, because that helps me. I mean, that really helps. That helps anybody who can hear it. Anybody who can hear it through that constructive lens, it's going to help. So, anyways, this is a very long game. The Barnes and Noble experience, I'm going to continue. The good news is both of the bookstores want me to come back, and they all had me sign their remaining stock, so they can't send it back to the publisher. So I'm going to go back to the Barnes and Noble. I'm going to also go back to Park Road Books and probably just do a book signing event, because I've learned how to do it and I just want to get better. Like I sold 6 the first time, sold 10 the next time. What can I do the next 4 hours that I go and spend at a Barnes and Noble or at a Park Road Books? Like, what can I do? And I'd love to just have eventually I'm going to have a resume and be like, look, I usually sell, I don't know what's realistic in 4 hours, but maybe at some point people will just come to me and I'll just sign and buy and sign and buy. But until that point, I enjoy the hustle. I enjoy the game. It's a game of, it's just, figuring out how to win the game basically. And I love that. Very competitive about it. And I love the game of business. So, anyways, I have rambled on and on today, so I'm going to let y'all go. Say happy weekend. Have a great Friday, good weekend. Hopefully my Mountaineers will win this weekend. Go Mountaineers, but West Virginia Mountaineers. But it's been a hard season already to watch. But if your college team is playing, I wish you all the best of luck, unless you're playing us, and then I wish you not the best of luck. But yeah. I also, if anybody wants to connect with me about this publishing journey, I do have a $99 strategy session. You can find it on my website. I would be happy to talk specifically about your book with you to determine, which route to go with it, and just give you some feedback. I've done that a couple of times, and it seems to be very helpful for people who are, wanting to publish a book or have already self-published and kind of want to figure out the next way to go. And just getting my feedback on it, I think, is really important. And I usually buy your book and read it before we even talk. So, bonus, you sell your book to me. So anyways, that's it. I hope you all have a great weekend. And yeah, let me know what you think of this video. If you want me to do more lives, I will. But thanks for being a follower. Thanks for being a supporter. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, everyone.